If you've been keeping an eye on the stock market, you might be feeling uneasy. And as the implementation of U.S. tariffs grow more unpredictable, investors are preparing for a slowdown in economic growth with risks of a recession looming over everyone.
I've just recently retired, and I'm not going to lose my job, but I may lose my investments, which is what I based our retirement schedule on. So that's a huge concern.
What do you need to know about how this could impact you and your investments? Well, we have some answers hopefully for you. Joining us today is Marvin Ryder. He is an associate professor at the Degroote School of Business at McMaster University. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Stefan.
What do you think about this decline in the stock market and how it's going to impact people's long-term investments?
So if you don't mind, let me just start with a general question. Why
Sure.
do stocks go up or down in value? And there are two answers to that. One is the performance of the company. Company does well, stock prices go up. The company does poorly, the stock prices go down. But the second reason why stock prices change is that the environment in which those companies operate is changing. Just let me give you a case in point from 2025. The year began January 1st. A week after Mr. Trump was inaugurated as president, both the Canadian and U.S. stock markets hit their maximum value so far in 2025. They're up almost 6%. Why? Because they assumed that Mr. Trump was going to be a really positive force for business. Today, the stock market is back to where it was on January 1st, 2025. Why? Well, it's turned out the last 6 weeks have been a very bumpy ride, and everyone's just a little more concerned about, well, is he really good news or is he really bad news? And in between, if you watch the stock market perform, it looks a bit like a heartbeat bouncing around. So my first advice to people who are retired or have a stock portfolio is just try to relax. Try not to watch the news day in and day out on these kinds of issues, because it's really hard to figure out where things are going when you have a president of the United States that doesn't necessarily seem to have a long-term coherent plan that is being played out. Number two, are we at risk of a recession? The answer is yes, of course. We've just come through some difficult economic times, and although in Canada there's lots of green shoots, a lot of positive things going on here, they can all be reversed, and we just don't know what the plan is. A great example of this, as Mr. Trump has put tariffs on various items, I would ask, what's it going to take to remove those tariffs? And he hasn't given us a consistent answer. So will it get worse before it gets better? Maybe. Will it get better before it gets worse? Maybe. We're just not in control of that. But if you've bought good things, if your stock portfolio is made up of good, strong companies whose performance is not changing, then do not let the environmental shifts bother you. It will work itself out in the long run.
We hear from a lot of economists or investment bankers that, volatility is part of the game and that you should really try to stay the course. And I know we have an emotional response, but is that still the rule of thumb that, just stay the course, don't pull out too quickly?
Yeah, that would again be my advice to you here. If you've bought good things, I'll just throw out a couple quick examples. You bought the Bank of Montreal or you bought Google. These are good, strong companies, and they will weather the storm. Now, day by day, their stock price will bounce around, and that's what we call volatility. But in the long term, they'll come back. And if I can look backwards over the years, say over the last 10, 15 years, even during COVID, there were stocks that went down during COVID, and they came right back up once COVID was over. Now, it did take 2 or 3 years, but they came back. So if you don't absolutely need to touch all that money today, then leave it where it is. Now, bigger firms like Mr. Buffett and his firm, they've decided to try to weather the storm by selling their most volatile stocks, the stocks that are going to bounce around the most, and turn that into cash. Why? Because as bargains show themselves, they'll be able to invest in them. But I think the little individual investor, we don't need to worry about that. Leave that to other things. And especially if you've bought mutual funds, leave that to your mutual fund managers. They'll sort that out. You just have to get used to the fact that for whatever reason, Mr. Trump has liked to throw rocks into a pond that call big ripples as we go through, and you just got to let him do that.
Just got to let him do that. And when it comes to how long this uncertainty could go on for, any predictions, or will it become the new normal and the stock market may just calm its own nerves and settle, even if there's some lingering uncertainty?
Yeah. As I go to sleep at night, I say a little prayer that, dear God, don't let this last for very long. But unfortunately, none of us are in control of this. And Mr. Trump seems to have a desire every day to shake things up. He likes being a disruptive force. So I just don't know. I don't know what to tell you how long this is going to go. My belief is that the world is reacting in the right way to Mr. Trump. The world is putting retaliatory tariffs on Mr. Trump. The world is also saying to places like Canada and Mexico, we love you, we've got your back. And Canadian companies and Mexican companies are exploring partnerships with other companies as it goes. Take your grocery store as an example. You know, you may have been used to getting lettuce and tomatoes that have grown in California. What you might be seeing are lettuce and tomatoes grown in Mexico, because Mexico is our friend through all of this. So temporarily, so we're going to see some of this as we set the new normal. I'd like to believe that Mr. Trump doesn't want to see this volatility. He understands the value of a calm stock market. So I'm hoping that by spring, late spring, April, May, maybe we'll see this calm down. But none of us are in charge, because none of us caused this. We've just got the bucking bronco underneath us, and our job is to hold on for as long as we can.
Oh my goodness, and we're holding on for dear life. Thank you, Professor.
My pleasure.
You take care.